Hello, I'm Michael for GameWatcher.com, and today we're going to be reviewing Reconquest, a new real-time strategy base building game developed by indie studio Stormcube Games. The game is set in the aftermath of World War III, where the planet's surface is now an irradiated wasteland, and the human shelters have opened up thanks to the radiation levels dropping, and now factions have arisen to reclaim the surface of the Earth through warfare and the acquisition of the most valuable resource, radioactive shale gas. The game is heavily inspired, as you can tell, by other games in the classic RTS genre such as Command & Conquer, Dune, and it adds a little bit of Mad Max in its aesthetics for good measure. The core mechanics of the game are solid if a little bit simple at times. You build your base up and build units and go and destroy the enemy, and that is basically all that you do in this game. Sadly, the game lacks objective-based gameplay, especially for its single-player campaign, which contains 2 faction campaigns, both lasting 10 missions long. The game also comes complete with a skirmish mode and a trapped mode, which is essentially a challenge mode, and on top of that, sadly excludes a multiplayer mode for this one. And it's something that I feel is sorely missed, because a multiplayer mode in this game would have probably increased its replayability and longevity tenfold. It's a game where the core mechanics of the game are solid. There are a few issues inherent in the design. For example, the infantry units are too squishy, and so they are inexpensive and become fairly useless very early on. As soon as you get your tank factory, there's no real reason to start producing infantry units after that point, because ultimately they die quickly and don't put out enough damage compared to vehicles. On top of this, apart from the few odd design flaws, the game also has an issue with strange exclusions from its feature system. For example, during a campaign mission, I cannot restart the level, but I can just randomly start a new skirmish mission, which will take me out of the campaign, which doesn't really make sense, which means that if you are on the losing end of a story mission and you want to restart the level, you have to wait until you completely die before you can actually do that. The overall quality of the game is good. It is just held back by issues like this, just some odd exclusions and some balancing issues. I think if those balancing issues were to get patched out, and the developers have thus far been good with post-launch updates, including various bug fixes and pathing issues, and a lot of the big issues that were faced upon launch have now been fixed. That being said, if the balancing issues do get patched out, it is something that could become at its core a fairly solid classic inspired RTS game. I certainly think that the lack of multiplayer is going to hurt the game in terms of its audience retention, but ultimately it is a starting point for the developers to move forward. Fans of the classic Command & Conquer series will get heavy nostalgia from this game. Both audibly and visually, you are going to see the similarities between the Command & Conquer games, and it really feels weird to build a building and listen to a female voice saying construction complete, which gives you serious Command & Conquer nostalgia trips, and that alone is a hell of a lot of fun. Overall, it is a game that does what it intends to do. It is an almost indie love letter to the classic RTS games of the modern time. It certainly is a lot of fun to play if you enjoy RTS games and if you are especially fans of Command & Conquer. For newer players, I would probably tend to avoid, because the issues that are inherent to the design, and in particular the fact that there is an exclusion of any kind of tutorial, means that it will probably be a confusing mess for new fans of the game. That being said, for classic RTS players, it is a nice little indie game that is well worth looking into. It is held back by several issues and several exclusions, but overall I think as a debut game from the developers, it's well worth looking into a sequel and seeing if they can improve upon what they've built here.